In the last video, we briefly talked about something called snapping. I'm going to expand on that a little bit in this video. So snapping basically means when the cursor locks onto a point. So when you didn't have snapping, if I were to try to draw a line, let's say there, and I wanted it to lock onto the end of this line, back in the day, if you didn't have snapping, you'd have to zoom right into this line and try to get that right on the end there. So now with snapping, if I hover over there, you can see that the cursor changes. And if I just turn off the smooth nodes and just click there, you can see that it's locked right onto the end of that. So if I were to come up to here, and then I could lock onto the end of there. Okay, and it's joined that shape up perfectly. Okay, so that's what snapping does. I'll just undo that. And I'm going to draw another line. So let's say I want to snap onto there. So notice how the cursor changes. So that's telling me now that that's a tangency. So if I click on there, it's locked to the tangent of this circle. And I can do the same on here. Let's say around about there. Okay. Do the same thing here and then lock onto the end of there. Lock onto the end of there, and then let's lock onto the end of there. And I'll show you how you can trim these off later, okay? Now I'll just undo this to go back like so. Okay, so what you can also do is if I go to the view drop down, and you got something called snapping down here. Okay, so you've got snap to grid, snap to guidelines. I'm going to explain these in a little while. Snap to objects, which is what we want to do. We've also got something called snap hints. Okay, so if I turn that on and then go to draw something, when I get near an object, it will display a little circle, and it sort of gives me a hint where these snap points are. Okay, so this won't actually snap, so just bear that in mind. It just literally just gives me an indication of where they are. Now, to be completely honest with you, I don't really use this, to be completely fair. Okay, it's maybe good for starting out if you need to know where they are, so you've got some sort of idea, and then you can come there and then you can snap to it. Okay. So it just gives you an indication of where these snap points are. Now, the problem with this is that when you've got quite a detailed piece and you've got lots of lines on the screen, it will give you snap hints all over the place. So it can be a bit of a hindrance then. That's why I like to turn it off. Okay, so when you're starting out, fine, I would use it. But when you start to get into some more detailed things, then I would tend to turn it off. Okay, and that's why it's not turned on by default. So let me turn that off, and I'm going to delete these. And what I'm going to do now is show you how to draw to a grid. So if I click here to show grid, you can see that I've got these really tiny dots on the screen, and this is a grid that's been set up for me for this particular model. Now, how wide are those dots? At the moment, I haven't got a clue. So if I go to view and then go to snapping again, and then go down to the bottom to snap grid settings, it will tell me the spacing. Okay, so at the moment, these are 1 inch wide. Let's say that I want them to be 1/2 inch. And it will make them smaller, so they're all 1/2 inch wide. Now, you can use these to actually draw to. Okay, so if I go to view and then snapping, and then snap to grid, and then start drawing, I can snap onto that point. Okay, let's come across, let's say 4 of them, which is 2 inches. And then I can come up, let's say 3 of them, 1.5 inch, maybe come over to there, like that. This allows you to create more sort of technical engineering type of drawings. Now this will always snap to that grid, okay? Because I've got that set up to do that. If you don't want it to snap to the grid, if you press shift down on the keyboard, it won't snap to it. So I could draw something in the center there now, okay? Right, so let's delete that and delete that. If you want to turn this back off, just go to snapping, make sure that you turn this off as well. So snap to grid, turn that off, and don't show the grid. Okay, so in the next video, we'll take a look at creating guidelines to also help you to create your vectors.